Hey, Muffin here. A subscriber request for tips and tricks with platooning. I actually thought this was a good idea, not just a standard tank, but actually working together as a team, and especially the ones that you platoon with. Now, you may not have a lot of control over what other players are doing, but in a platoon, it's a bit tighter and closer. You can really work together. Now, this is a couple replays back to back of me and my brother Kyle. The one thing that makes it really helpful for this is we actually talk on the phone while we play, but in terms of other people you platoon with, I really don't know how that does, but communication in a platoon really helps. Now, in terms of using the chat, I know that's quite difficult, but here you'll notice in these two replays, we're not both two tank destroyers. We're not, both like two of the same thing. You can kind of do that, but there's a lot of magic behind using two different types of tanks. In this one, my brother's a grill, a tank destroyer, and I'm a heavy tank, so I can utilize more of the front lines, be in the trenches, and he could be in a supportive role helping me. And this is what we're doing here. Now in this game, I noticed right off the bat, we are against a really good player, and he's in a platoon, Tebra, if any of you guys know him. And that is one of our key focuses, is to suppress him, try to get rid of him and his platoon mate. That is me and my brother's number one focus. He's a very good player. I've come across him a couple times. So as me and my brother are talking to each other on the phone here, we're constantly letting each other know where the enemy is, what's going on. He's letting me know things maybe I might be tunnel visioning a little bit on. You'll notice even kind of toward the end of this replay, he lets me know, hey, there's guys coming up behind you. So really working together in that function of not only just, okay, I'm in a heavy tank, I'm in the front lines, but he can also fulfill his role. And we're also paying attention to each other. We are also trying to pay attention and protect and help our team, doing all the things that I share in like a typical tips and tricks video, but it's really helpful when paying attention to your teammate. The other thing is make sure you're not calling your teammate names or being mad. You want to make sure that you guys are both having a good time. That is also one of the huge factors there. Obviously, you could lose friends, things of that sort. So here, I'm really trying to use my tank strengths and expose my enemy's weaknesses. These enemies are doing a really good job. And my platoon mate, or my brother, he is in his grill trying to utilize it the best of his ability. He's a glass cannon. We're both trying to use the landscape. So a lot of it in terms of working with a platoon is also both being in tanks that you can perform really well in. So if you go to your stats and you look at which tanks you have the highest average damage in, that also can help too, especially if your platoon mate is using a tank of that same tier. That also helps too if he's using a tank that he has his highest average damage. Now, if you're looking for ways to increase your win rate, another thing that really helps is to platoon with somebody that has a higher win rate than you do. That also does help, and paying attention to them, because you can learn a lot from what they do. So just a couple tips there. So going along with playing tanks that you both do well in is also knowing the tanks that you're in. If you're both playing tanks you do well in, that also really helps increase your chance of victory, success. Playing tanks sometimes that maybe you suffer or struggle in, it can cause potentially not a very good experience. So those are some good ways to really help increase the effectiveness of that platoon. Play tanks that really match your style, and then just really working together, always paying attention to your teammate. So even, like I said, right there at the end, he was trying to let me know bad guys were coming up from behind me. I was really focused on that on the hill. Even I'm not perfect sometimes. I do tunnel vision. But going here into the second replay, we're always looking out for each other's back. We're always putting ourselves in a position to try to support each other. And you'll notice that through here. And when he also calls for help, I'm also really trying to pay attention for that. So in this one, I do a couple noobish things. I get a little bit just too aggressive. But one of the other things that's really nice about platooning is that you know a little bit more about the player you're playing with, and you can rely on them a little bit more. I've been playing with my brother a long time, and what I mean by that is you can utilize his position and make your position that much more effective. So my brother in the grill right behind me is supporting me so I can advance a little bit more to a position. We don't really necessarily spot anyone coming over here to the sides. So I know this is a good place for me to be, not only because I have my team behind me, but I also have my platoon mate to suppress and hold off these enemies. This is where I get my aimer's just off, like just getting a little bit noobish here. This honestly would be a way better thing if I would have been side scraping right here. So don't do necessarily what I was doing just right there. But anyway, like utilizing each other's positioning is really one thing that you can do in a platoon. If you see your platoon mate trying to fulfill his role, try to fulfill your role. Pay attention to him and vice versa. So as you advance and move to one position, your teammate kind of knows that, oh, this area is either clear, I can move up, and you guys can both move up and advance together, utilizing your team, the surroundings, not tunnel visioning, and that also helps here as well. So my brother here, he's getting moved up on, so I tried coming up over this hill and going, now I'm actually trying to push and go down to try to protect that side as much as I can while these guys are advancing. Didn't realize that Waffenträger was all the way over on the other side, but really trying to get down in here and help my team. I'm trying to focus on that chieftain because this medium here in front of me is a little distracted, and now trying to use him as kind of a meat shield, or so much so that he can protect me, so that I can try to get off some of these other enemies. And then we try to reconvene. He's using me as protection because this is also the power in using two different types of tanks, whereas he's a glass cannon. I've got more armor, and he knows that he can rely on me. I've got the armor. I'm paying attention that T95 is way too slow. I'm trying to get up over here while he's trying to aim and suppress the enemy so he can't push up, and I'm coming up around the other side. So communication, relying on each other, utilizing each other's positions, paying attention to each other, really working as a team, really helps out. And so as he's kind of trying to use me as protection, I'm trying to protect him and trying to put myself in a place that enemies don't advance on him. Because if the grill would have been left alone as a glass cannon, the enemies could have rushed him, come up on him. And so really, really trying to look out for each other is one thing that's really helpful. Now, this Brigetto was AFK unfortunate for the enemy team here, because if he wasn't, the enemy probably would have won here, especially with a couple of my noobish moves at the beginning. So those honestly are just the tips that I have in terms of platooning. So just to recap, number one, you could play with a player that has a higher win rate than you to try and increase your win rate. Number two, you could both look at your stats and see which tank you guys both perform best with in terms of those tiers, and that'll help you. Number three, pay attention to where both of you guys are at. Number four, you guys can utilize your positioning. So as one person's trying to fulfill their role, maybe as a heavy in advance, and the other one's a tank destroyer, you can support each other in those roles. Next, be different types of tanks, because one can fulfill one person's role, the other one can be another. Like if you're a medium or light, the other one can spot, while the other one is that tank destroyer maybe and trying to shoot the enemy. So just some tips here. This is the Muffin here. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.